Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack. Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining, we did it. We survived the offseason. Super Bowl is in the books.
Thank God.
And it's time for 2025 NASCAR. We are race week for the Daytona 500. We'll have cars on the track today on
Wednesday morning,
Wednesday?
7 a.m. breakfast time out here on the West Coast.
If you want to dual screen it with our pod up and the practice, that'd be sweet. Send us some pictures on socials. We got the duels. We got the race on Sunday. The Great American Race. It's go time.
It is absolutely go time. And I am ecstatic about the amount of cars that we have on the entry list this year. 5 more than can actually make it into the field of maximum of 40 this year. Like, this is great. I mean, Elio Castroneves, he's technically in without actually having to go through the qualifying, taking that new weird provisional rule spot. And then you got Martin Truex Jr., Jimmy Johnson, all these people jumping in here.
Martin Truex, I'm retiring. Just kidding. I'm actually back in the season.
And then, and quite honestly, like I love those guys. I love Jimmy. I love Martin Truex Jr. especially, and Elio jumping into a Cup Series car for the first time is great. But I think the most intriguing guy that I'm the most excited to watch has got to be Justin Allgaier. He was incredible in the 5 during the Coke 600 when he jumped into Kyle Larson's seat, and we all know how good Allgaier is in the Xfinity Series.
Yeah,
I am
not
excited to see what he
this
can do.
week, is he, Brian?
Well, yeah, that's true. But I mean, when you jump in the super speedway package, like,
yeah, that's true.
All the cars, they may not be the same here, like horsepower, blah, 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 whatever we can talk about. But the dude's a great racer. He's coming off Xfinity Series championship. RIP to Xfinity Series, by the way, next year, new title sponsor, maybe 2026. But yeah, I think Allgaier is the guy I'm most looking forward to see and hoping he gets into the field.
It's Gator season. Let's throw those Gators in the chat. Brian Twining.
I won't be betting on Gator, though, just for the sake of everybody else that wants to play him, because every single time I play Justin Allgaier, he wrecks.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. You're definitely, even the weeks you loved him in Xfinity, you're like, I can't bet him because every time he either gets like third when we bet him outright, or if we bet us like placements and he gets like 33rd, and we're like, oh, okay, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
So Brian, a lot of new people hopefully jumping in as NASCAR gets going. Welcome back. If you are a returning viewer of the show, you know how this goes, but I wanted to kind of break it down for everybody so you know what to expect. So we have 2 shows a week. We drop one in your feed Wednesday morning. Yes, the calendar in my head. Wednesday morning on YouTube is the best place to watch, but we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. And then we're back in your feed Sunday morning as like your appetizer for the race. We also have a newsletter that is completely free and goes out every race day with all of our breakdown of our picks, a few of our favorite DraftKings plays, which is what the Sunday morning show will be. And then usually there's a few extra things in there. There's the full betting card. There's a lot of variety in there. So I want to make sure that you are all aware of all those things. Those will all be linked down in the description, as well as the link to our Grid Rival League. It is completely free to join. We will be doing prizes. We're still working out the kinks on kind of what that looks like. Let us know what you'd like to see. Like, do you want autographed memorabilia? Do you want Fanatics gift cards? Do you just want straight cash, homie? Like, let us know down in the comments. And you want winner take all? You want a couple prizes? Let us know. We're trying to figure that out, give you guys the best of the best. Also want to shout out wintherace.com. They are powering Angle of Pursuit this year. They're giving us access to all of their data and information. We'll try and share as much of that as possible, but highly, highly, highly recommend hopping in there, Brian. And I've used it for both betting and for DFS last year. They have sims, they have thoughts, but the coolest thing is the community they're building over on Discord.
100%.
People are shopping lines constantly. If you're interested in betting the lines and you're not, you don't have as much time to dedicate, someone will see something on Caesars or Bet365 or ESPN bet, and they'll be like, drop it in the chat, and then we can all go hammer and win it together. So highly recommend getting in over there. It helped Brian and I win a lot of money and be productive last year. So even if you're new and you're only dropping, $20 on DraftKings and $50
Yep.
in the betting window, that every week it's going to help you build your bankroll. It's going to help you be a better and be better at DraftKings. So it's a good investment. Brian and I both took advantage of it last year. Like I said, we're back this year and we're happy to have them on board with the angle of pursuit. But Brian, with that being said, should we look at some lines?
Let's do it, baby.
All right. We'll talk some Daytona 500. Obviously, one of the most unpredictable races of the year. So Brian and I, in the past, would probably dive head first without without floaties, without a life jacket, without everything, and then we try
Yep.
and swim upstream the rest of the season. We're convincing ourselves that that's changing this year. That being said, we do want to look at some odds. We want to talk about where the value may or may not be. We'll take a couple flyers in terms of lottery tickets. But Brian, I guess from an overall perspective, how are you thinking about betting and betting this week's race? Because like I said, last year we did some crazy stuff, bet way too much.
Yeah.
How are you approaching it this year?
Well, if you've been tuning into our shows the last 3-4 years, however long it's been now, I think you can see the evolution of us as NASCAR bettors. And something that has really been taken to heart by myself is at these super speedways, I'm being extremely cautious. And for show purposes, like clearly we want to point out bets that we like. And I will personally have a few dart throws at very small plays. Like this is literally a race where this is fun money.
Mm-hmm.
It's just easy throwaway. I'm planning on spending this type of race. So I'm not here to try to win the jackpot in week 1 at Daytona whatsoever. Now, if you do want to go out there, I do think that there are guys that you can, potentially play an outright, but this is a race where you shotgun the board with a lot of the longer odds guys, and you sit back, you relax, and you wait for the multiple big ones that will inevitably come, and you pray that your guy is not involved.
And Brian and I are going to try and point out stuff all year that we like, values, potential opportunities. But remember, this is wagertainment. This isn't something that you should expect to pay your house off with the end of the season. Bet what you can afford to lose. And if you can't afford, if you want to spend $20 a week betting NASCAR and put a couple bucks on each bet, love it. If you have more flexibility and you want to put $100 on each bet, $200 on each bet, happy to help you get the information that you need. Just stay within your weans, figure out because you want to be able to do this the whole season.
Exactly.
You don't want to blow your bankroll on 2 races and then basically not have anything to show. And the idea is to build little bets, and there's going to be losing weeks, but there's also going to be winning weeks, and you have to keep yourself honed in both ways. So if you go out and you absolutely crush it and you 10x your money, don't go double and triple and quadrupling your bet on the next few races and being like, where'd all my money go? So, it's a long haul. We're looking for futures. We're looking for good bets. We're looking for opportunities, and we're looking to get better each and every week. So with that being said, let's talk some odds. The top of the board has some interesting names. I'm using Odds Checker this week. We kind of bounce around. It depends on what actually comes up. What does the lines actually look like compared to what they are on the books? Sometimes we'll use Caesar. Sometimes we'll use other sites. If there's certain sites you guys want us to include each week, definitely drop those down in the comments. We're happy to factor those in. But this is a good, kind of a snapshot of where everything is. You can see the blue dots are the ones where the best number is for each driver. So Blaney, Logano, Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott. I'll include William Byron because he's based, most of his numbers are kind of inside that 20-1. And then we'll kind of go down to the next range. So obviously the who's who of elite drivers. But Brian, we talked about it. This is a lottery ticket 500. This is, even if you are having the race of your life, if you're around Austin Dillon or Austin Cindric or some other jabroni who does something stupid, or there's a pile 5 feet in front of you and there's literally nothing you can do, you're out of the race or you're in 23rd place all of a sudden. So be aware of that when you're attacking the board, especially up here. That being said, Brian, is there anyone that's garnering interest? Anybody's numbers? Like, I know it's a little short, but I think there's potential value there. And obviously, most weeks, jumping in on the beginning of the week, and then like as the week rolls along, the numbers are going to move dramatically. Super speedways, someone may go out and dust the field and look really fast and have their number jump up, but no one's number is going to go crazily one way or the
No.
other outside of maybe a handful of guys. So if you don't love anything and you want to be patient, you want to see cars on track before you make any decisions, this is a great week to do that. Some of the other weeks you're trying to beat the market, you're trying to jump on numbers when there's value or potential value. But this week especially, be patient if you don't think, like, if there's, like for example, Keselowski's pretty much 12 or 14 everywhere and you like him, but the odds of him going to 6 is like basically not a thing. So wait till Sunday, wait until you see him on the track tomorrow and or I guess Tuesday or Wednesday and all that stuff before you make any decisions. With that being said, Brian, who's interesting to you from this range?
Well, I hate saying this, and if you watched our season-long show, I mentioned this. My first bet that I made way back in, I think it was November, when season-long odds first dropped. I played Joey Logano's season win total under for this upcoming year, but he's a guy last year. He controlled the field of last year's Daytona 500. He's a guy at super speedways who I fully expect to be running up front for the majority of the day, which does not always mean that he's going to win the race. I mean, last year he wound up getting wrecked to no fault of his own. And so that's the type of stuff you have to sit and worry about. But I think of the guys that are currently priced inside that 15-1 range, or the favorites, as you can call them, I think he's really the only one that I would consider playing right now. And quite honestly, personally, I'm not playing any of these guys that are inside probably 20. I just don't have any interest in getting to action on something where I think it's important to remember that we also have to run the duels, which if there's a wreck there, these guys are going to be going to a backup car, which maybe in today's NASCAR, with the way everything is built to specs and everything's the same, it may not as big of a detriment as in the past, but still, like, these guys' Daytona 500 cars have been set up for weeks, probably heading into this race. And to go into a duel, wreck it, and then have to spend all 2 days setting it up for the race, like, that's going to be a major detriment to them trying to win. So I'd be very cautious in betting any of these. It's just another reason why I've grown to, not really want to play any of these numbers at these inside 20 or 15-1.
Yeah, but I do like the point you made. There is a little more time with the way it's set up this week to actually update your car, but you don't get to get it back on track and test it and see if
Exactly.
it's all set up correctly. The other name that I think is interesting from this range is Denny Hamlin. We've kind of gone back and forth a little bit about him. He's obviously somebody who races this race very, very smartly, as he's comfortable. Even if he's starting 3rd or 5th or 7th, he's going to let the field go around him, and he's going to hang out in the back, and he's going to wait for his opportunity. And maybe you get back with the squirrels, you get bit, ends up being not the decision, but he's willing to wait his time, where some other drivers, maybe a Watermelon Man, maybe a Kyle Larson, tend to get a little too aggressive a little too early. Well, he's somebody I'm going to be keeping an eye on. I don't know if, like you said, I'm probably not betting any of these guys, at least at this point of the race. But he is somebody that I'm at least keeping an eye on. If he looks fast, if he's going to be good in the duels, even if I have to bet it at 13 or 12, I'd rather do that. But I trust him to keep it on track and to do the stuff he needs to do to be viable come end of the day on Sunday. Let's talk about the next range, because I think
I was just going to say, The one rebuttal I have on Denny Hamlin now is the Denny Hamlin that I've seen the last 2 years, I think it's been, compared to the Denny that we first saw when you and I both started jumping in here at the super speedways in the
Yeah.
Gen 6 car, is completely different. His style of super speedway racing is kind of, as you said, lay back, let everybody else F up, and then make the run late. Whereas in today's super speedway races, especially at Daytona, track position actually matters. And you really don't have a shot to win if you're outside the top, maybe eight, maybe six when you're coming
Yeah.
to 2 to go. And so Denny's style is going to have to drastically change, in my opinion, if he has any hopes of winning the Daytona 500. And that is, of course, throwing away all of the AI generated information that our buddy Ryan from iFantasy Race has been throwing out there, that Google is predicting a rain delayed race and Denny Hamlin winning and all sorts of crazy shit. So, you could take that with a grain of salt, but yeah,
It's only
Denny,
crazy until it hits, and then you're
yeah,
all on board.
exactly.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah, Denny scares me. Like, it's almost like he's gotten too cautious
Mhm.
at these super speedways.
And we've talked about it with the old guys. They get a little more cautious, and they're a lot closer to that like 5 to 10 range than they are to the actually winning the race. I will say, looking at his numbers too, he's kind of been in like that teens to high 20s the last couple of years. Obviously, some good running position, some good track rate, driver ratings, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a good pushback. Let's talk about the next range, because I think this is where things get fun. So William Byron, you can get as long as 22, Buescher 24, Chris Bell at 26, Austin Cindric at 28, Bubba at 28, the Watermelon Man at 29, and then we start talking like 30s with Bowman, Stenhouse, Gillen, Reddick, like all the way down. So let's just start with that 20 range. Is there anyone from Byron to basically Bowman, or you can even include Stenhouse, I guess, yeah, I mean, some of these guys are inside that 30, but basically anybody from 30 and 30 to 1 and in that you're either betting or you're keeping a close eye on, being ready to fire if you need to.
This is probably going to receive a lot of pushback, but in my opinion, the most underrated super speedway racer is on this list, and he drives the number 2 car for Penske, Austin Cindric. He was the first outright dart I played for the Daytona 500. I got it at 25. 28, I think, is a great number on him. The Penske garage is incredible at working together at super speedways. And to a man, I think most people who watch the sport, who are in the sport, would agree that both Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney are 2 of maybe the best 5 super speedway racers, leaving Austin Cindric to be literally right there, just riding their coattails. And I think, as I said, he's really good at this racing style, and he's uber aggressive, which is what you need in today's next gen super speedway racing. He finds a track position, he goes for it, as was evidenced last year when he wrecked with Ross Chastain with coming to 1 to go. And then when he stole the 500 win from his teammate Ryan Blaney just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So this would be the first range that I would even consider placing bets. And the first guy would be Austin Cindric, especially at that 28.
Yeah, if you can get 25 or 28, I say fire. 20, 22, I don't know if I love quite as much, but I'm very much in lockstep with Cindric. As you mentioned, both of his teammates are basically the betting favorites. So being able to get the third car, I know it's third car, I know it's Austin Cindric. I know we don't love him like 80% of the time. Super speedways, he tends to show up, and then like some road courses, he tends to show up. I'm also optimistic about him, and I'm also curious because I saw his dad is kind of stepping down at his role with Team Penske. And is that a foreshadowing of Austin's seat getting a little warmer? Is that potentially offering an opportunity to get to send him elsewhere if they want to move on? There's definitely some interesting discussions. So this would be a great race for him to win. I think the number makes sense, and I'm definitely in agreement. I like Christopher Bell. And I know 26 is the best number. 25, I'm fine with. 22 is okay. 20, I'm kind of debating. It's hard to get there when there's 25s and 28s. And I know doesn't seem like that much of a difference, but I think there is a significant difference between a 20 and a 22, a 22 and 25.
Oh yeah.
Because NASCAR is a hard enough sport to bet. So you want to get the best of the number. And I know it's going to be hard, and there's going to be some weeks where you love somebody, but the number should be 18 or 20 or 22, and they're going to be listed at 14. You can't bet it. If you long term, it's going to be the best for your bankroll if you just kind of avoid that stuff. I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned since we've done this. But Bell has been somebody who doesn't really pop up maybe on everyone's mind in terms of super speedway road racing, but he's just an awesome driver who's kind of awesome everywhere. Last few finishes, he's been top 3 at the 500. A lot can happen, but a lot of weeks we're going to be betting Bell at 6, at 8, at maybe 10 if we get lucky.
I was just gonna say 6 and 8, man. I think this is the year where he's in lockstep with Kyle Larson, and they're both like 5, 4.5 at a lot of places.
So I know the number, it's a little bit long. It's a little bit short for a super speedway, but he's been really strong here. I think he can win. And I just think of the ones that kind of jumped out to me initially, he was the other one.
Yeah, I actually like that play just because when you're talking about market entry for prices at a race like this, as I kind of alluded to with Austin Cindric, I mean 25 and 28, that's almost that's double of what the favorites, which there should not be the term favorite at a super speedway race because there's so many things that could occur that take out the best driver. This is not like we're at Bristol where, it's going to take a flat tire or something of that nature to take out the leader. The leader can be the best car all day, as was shown last year with Joey Logano leading the field, being about a mile per hour faster than everybody if he wanted to, and getting caught up in somebody else's disaster. And so, going back to when to bet or what to bet at the 500, I just don't see the value in playing the guys that are up top when you can get guys of equal or maybe possibly better performance expectations at Daytona for double the price.
Yeah, like for example, betting Christopher Buescher instead of Brad Keselowski. Love Keselowski. I think he's an awesome driver. He's a Hall of Famer. But getting Buescher at basically double the odds for a guy who's won this race. He won in obviously not the 500, but he won at Daytona in 2023. He was top 5 in 2023. Was top 10 at both races last year. Obviously not winning the race, and he's just good at super speedways kind of in general. And having Keselowski in your garage helping you out, knowing how to set up cars for this track.
And the addition of Ryan Preece, who when he was with JTG Doherty was a really good super speedway racer. I really think a lot of people are glancing over that in that now with them having a real third car in that garage and a driver who is really skilled at these super speedways. I mean, it would not surprise me one bit if RFK takes home 2 of the we'll just call Talladega and Daytona super speedways. Atlanta's kind of its own little animal. 2 of the 4 super speedway races this year are won by RFK guys. Would not surprise me.
Yep. I think that makes a lot of sense. Anyone else you want to hit on before we jump to the next range?
I mean, I think Chastain's interesting just because, again, the aggressiveness of him of wanting to run up front, but
I just worry he stage 2 aggressiveness instead of
that's exactly. I almost feel like he's a little bit too aggressive in nature.
This is also a fun race where you can wait for somebody to go to the back and maybe you get some live odds and you can jump in on a couple lottery tickets. But 29 is okay, I guess. But I'm betting Cindric first, and I'm betting Bell first. I'm betting Cindric second. And probably Bubba before I bet Chastain.
I was just gonna say we can't get out of this range without propping up our guy Bubba Wallace. Like people can shit on him all they want, and we all know why. The majority of people do this, but Bubba Wallace is an incredible super speedway racer, one of the best in the sport. And if you gave me the option to take Bubba Wallace versus Brad Keselowski today, like again, market entry, I'm going to take the 28 over 12 or 14 every single time.
Especially at a super speedway. At a normal race, maybe not, but for sure. Yeah. Let's talk 30s. There's a bunch of names. I'll just read them off. You find the one that gives you the most interest. So Gilliland's numbers are like absurd. You can get him as short as 16, as long as 30.
Yeah, no.
Obviously, he can be really good, and I know, especially last year, Fords were incredible here. Is that an expectation people should have? Or do you think that was more of a product of 2024 and maybe, wait to see what cars actually do before we make any dramatic decisions in terms of manufacturer performance?
Yeah, I think the sports books are really pricing the Fords based on their qualifying speed, because I don't think anybody's going to sit here and try to tell you that Todd Gilliland is one of the even 15 best super speedway racers. So his numbers are way too short. He's probably going to qualify well because front row, they clearly had something on the field when it came to, the Saturday, or we'll just call it qualifying runs at super speedways. So I don't doubt that he's going to start up near the front. I just don't trust him to finish near the front.
Yeah, that's probably realistic. So Gilliland, Reddick, Gibbs, McDowell, Chase Briscoe, Josh Berry, Daniel Suarez, a lot of new guys in new places. Your aforementioned Ryan Preece, you can get as long as 45, but then there's like 20 in market. So it's really important, especially as we get into these range, that you're looking for the best number. Obviously, if you have one book and you want to bet somebody, go for it. But it's really hard to bet Josh Berry at 25 when I know there's 40s, multiple 40s and a 37.
Yeah.
We'll stop before we get to Greg's. And so Priest, Dillon, Suarez, Bell, Briscoe, McDowell, Gibbs, Reddick, Gilliland, Stenhouse. Anyone you're clamoring to talk about or make sure it gets on your card?
Well, so going back to the whole conversation about I would rather bet this guy versus this guy, based on price. I know a lot of people are on him, but why on earth would you want to play Kyle Busch at 12 or 14 to 1 when even this dude who has under half a win for the season on Austin Dillon, when you can get him at 45?
Yeah.
Like, look, he's not great, but he's won at Daytona before. Like, this is the race where you play the long shots. You don't play the favorites. Austin Dillon has as good a chance, and maybe not better, than Kyle Busch of winning here. I mean, we saw it, I believe it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I can't remember now, when him and Kyle were running up front, leading the pack. They were dominating the field, and then all of a sudden they took each other out. Like, what else is there to say about that? You're getting 4 times the value on the number for a guy who's going to be running similarly, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great point. And, people are trying to get back in on Kyle Busch, and I think they're going to end up disappointed because he's a back marker. It's what he's been. Obviously, there's been races where he pops up, and he was strong here last year, but I don't trust him as far as I can throw him, and that's not very far. So I'd much rather if I'm taking an RCR shot, I'm taking 45. I'm not taking 12.
Yeah.
I want Chase Briscoe. I'm adding the 37.50. I know it's probably silly, but this is a guy at SHR who was awesome at super speedways, is now in much better equipment. I know Martin Truex never really did that great in super speedways, but I think that's a Martin Truex thing. I don't think that's a number 19 car thing. I think Briscoe has a good eye for this track. I honestly thought this number would be shorter given the equipment change that he's going into this year. This is about what he was getting at SHR. So I'm going to take a shot here at a longer price than I thought I would be getting. And obviously the market's kind of the weird thing about this is like kind of like week 1 of the NFL or other sports where it's like the market's matured a little bit. It's like the dramatic movement at this point probably isn't there anyways, but I don't know if I'm betting. I'm definitely not betting 28. I'm probably not betting 30. But if I can get 37 or better, Briscoe makes my card.
Yeah, we're getting to the point now where they're like, these are fun darts.
Yeah.
And
we're putting half a unit, quarter of a unit.
Yeah,
So
and
we
it
just
would
want a
not
couple
surprise
lottery
me one
tickets
bit to see
to root
Briscoe
for.
coming to the white flag in the front two rows and in prime position to potentially win.
Yeah, and he's done well at Talladega. He's done well at Atlanta. What about another guy who won Atlanta last year? Was awesome early. Obviously faded as we went. But Mi Amigo 42. That's no okay.
that's just a flat out that's like a non-starter for me.
Yeah, it's hard when he's right when like Austin Dillon and Ryan Preece are right behind him, and Briscoe.
Well, and then going back to what I said about the super speedway racing, I think Atlanta is kind of evolving into its own unique type of track. It's a mini super speedway, but it doesn't necessarily race like Daytona or Talladega whatsoever. And so, I think that was a product of maybe track position for Daniel Suarez. Like he had maneuvered his way and found himself up front late there, but Daytona is not like that. You can luck into a win, but I just haven't seen enough from Suarez on traditional super speedways for me to get excited about playing him even at the 40, 42.
What about McDowell? Obviously making the switch from FRM to Spire. It's traditionally a guy who pops at super speedways.
Yeah.
Are you interested in potentially seeing what he could do with his new team? Because Justin Haley, even when he was with Spire, would do pretty well here. Is it something that's sort of interesting? Obviously, the 25 I don't love, but 37 I think makes a lot of sense. Even 33 I'm okay with. Is he someone that tickles your fancy?
I mean, I don't hate it. We actually hit on McDowell a couple when he won the 500. We were actually on that price, but I don't know. I've heard the stuff about like Spire has some sort of affiliate agreement with HMS, and so obviously they're going to be bringing better cars, and yeah, that's exciting and all that. But I mean, transitioning to a whole new team, like new pit crew, new crew chief, like, well, no, I think he brought his crew chief over from FRM. I'm gonna have to double check that. But I don't know. I'm not playing guys in new rides really, so I mean that kind of eliminates Chase Briscoe for me too. So
yeah, no, that's fair. McDowell, Gilliland, bet him to win, bet him to qualify on the pole, and don't bet him to win the race. That's kind of how I played it before, and I think that's maybe how I'll play it again. Let's talk the next range. Gregson, Eric Jones, AJ Allmendinger, Justin Haley, Carson Hocevar, Riley Herbst, Cole Custer, John Hunter, SVG, Ty Dillon, Helio Castroneves, kind of the back marker du jour. Anybody in this range that you want to add to your card, that you want a lottery ticket and see if there's value there? Or do you think kind of the last range ending with Ryan Preece is kind of where you're going to stop paying attention?
well, I think one of the funnest bets this week is going to be on Carson Hocevar because the dude is all pedal to the metal.
Yeah.
And we're talking about aggressiveness. I'm not sure there are many drivers in the Cup Series right now that can match his. So clearly he's a wreck waiting to happen. And as we saw last year within the first 5 laps, I think he's already out of the race. And so, there's a big worry there. But I mean, if you're going to give me 66, you can play $1 on this just to have some fun here. And, I would not hate that. It's not, again, we're not playing big bets, no full unit wagers on these things. But if you're going to get crazy, I do not mind a dart on Carson Hocevar whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, he may wreck in lap 1. He may wreck on the last lap of the race, but he'll find a way to end up in the fence or upside down or who knows. But I don't hate it, and I think he's somebody who could take a step forward, but we'll see. Eric Jones is always somebody that's kind of interesting. It's interesting to see his number where it is. I feel like he's somebody that always gets a lot of buzz and hype, and like he's all of a sudden 35
Yeah.
by the time we get to race day. So the fact that he's still in the 50s is kind of interesting. Not really betting it, but I just thought it was kind of
It's
interesting.
it's it's the legacy
Yeah,
issue.
they're not really going to leave their legacy on NASCAR.
No, they're gonna leave a legacy, but it's gonna be a really bad one.
Yeah, that's true. Noah Gragson. I don't know. I feel like we're just saying names at this point. So, okay. So I guess of all the names we talked about, is there anyone you're adding to the card now? And if not, who's like 2 or 3 names that are on your short list to potentially add if you can find the right number?
So I am gonna play Cindric, the
Yeah.
Fanduel or Caesars number at 28. I think that's a number I am interested in participating with. And then outside of that for outrights, I don't think I'm gonna have really any more just because I mean we're talking this could be an absolute shit fest on Sunday. Especially, I mean, again, going back to the very beginning of the show, talking about like the Denny Hamlin AI theory. If it does rain, what kind of racing are we going to get on Monday? Do they start this race and then we get rain delayed and then we got to restart? Like,
Yeah.
I want no part of that when it comes to wagering at a super speedway.
Yeah, I think super speedway, especially the 500, treat it like Super Bowl. Like it's fun to throw darts at random props and see what you can get. And obviously, we get some longer shots, so it's kind of fun. But I wouldn't go too crazy betting a lot of these guys. I'm betting Chris Bell at 26. I like that number. And I'm betting Chase Briscoe at 37.50. And I'm putting like a third of a unit or three quarters of a unit and a half a unit, respectively. Probably not going to add anybody else. Cindric, I like, is a good shout. Um, I don't know, we'll see. If there's anybody you guys are pounding the table for, drop them in the comments. We're always interested to see who you're betting, and maybe you can convince us because we like to make money. So if you think there's opportunity in market, if you think a guy makes too much sense at certain numbers, definitely let us know.
Well, I do think so. The one thing that Odds Checker does not have listed is all the open guys. So
Right.
checking Caesars, Martin Truex Jr. is 35 to 1. If Truex didn't get it done with JGR, you're not going to find me betting him when he's driving a Tricon Garage or whatever the hell is
Yeah.
actually being sponsored by the 50. Going back to those 56 number, like, yes, it's a fun story, but no, I'm not betting Martin Truex Jr. to win the 500.
Yeah, and also make sure if you're betting any of the open guys that you're looking at the rules for the sports book. Like, do they have to make the field in order for your bet to be
Yep.
like counted? Like, will you get because if you get refunded and you want to take a couple shots on guys who may make the field, then go for it. But if they don't make the field and and that's a losing bet, then that's gonna suck. So make
Yeah.
sure you're checking that if you're betting any of those guys. All right. Before we jump into the kind of the rest of the odds, I do want to bring up. So our friends over at GridRival are hooking you all up. AOP 25 will give you 100% match deposit bonus on up to $100. So if you deposit 100, you get 100 to play with, and they have pick'ems and they have like over unders, or they call better or worse, and they have matchups. And then there's also an Angle of Pursuit Listeners League, as I mentioned off the top. We did it last year. We had a lot of fun.
Yep.
You pick drivers every week. You can use them for up to 3 races. You kind of choose, okay, I want to use Kyle Larson for all 3 races. I want to use Chris Buescher for 2. I want to use Ross Chastain for 1. You get in like the salary changes, but if you locked them in a better price, then you get that better price. If you pick somebody for a race and their price goes down, you're still paying the expensive race. So it's a lot of strategy and thought that goes into it. It's a season long contest. So if you don't get in this week, that's cool. You will get you'll get the points of whoever is lowest in the league.
Yep.
So you can play a little catch up. And Brian and I got in. I think I got in a little bit late last year, and was still able to get into the top 3. So there's a long chance for you to catch up. It's a fun thing, and like I said, we're going to have prizes. And if you have thoughts on what you'd like that to be, autographed Chase Elliott helmets or Fanatics gift cards or however you want that to look, let us know down in the comments. But we did put together a pick'em. We'll do one for the betting show, and then we'll do another one for the other show on race day. But based on Brian and I's thoughts, this is where we landed on. So I think Christopher Bell is going to have a good race. I think he has a chance not only to win, but flirt with the top 5 and be a really solid driver all day. And so we're doing better on his 14.5 position. Brian really likes some Christopher Buescher, so we're doing the same thing with his 15.5. Obviously, it's dangerous to do that in a Daytona race. It's probably better. It's probably better to go look for some guys that you think are going to do something stupid and go worse. But for this pick, we're doing these two, and then we both like Austin Cindric a lot, and you can get Austin Cindric plus a position and a half versus Chase Elliott. So if Chase Elliott finishes 12th and Cindric finishes 13th, we win. So this is a pick'em that we put together. Like I said, you can do up to 8 picks for 100x payout. It's pick'ems. It's available in all the states, which is really cool. And plus, you can join our Grid Rivals League when you do this. So you're not required to put any money in to join our Grid Rivals League. It's completely free. But if you want to do pick'ems and other stuff, which I highly recommend, you can do that deposit bonus.
It's very fun for us here in California, by the way, too.
Yeah, if you're in a state that doesn't allow legal betting, then this is kind of a fun way to get, especially for something like the 500. It's a great way to get involved. If you're going to do a little DraftKings, do a little Grid Rival.
Well, and then like we're saying too, for the 500, this is a fantastic way to make the race that much more interesting, because you're not sitting there hoping for one guy to do better than the other guy at a large handle. Here, you can play five different driver finishing positions, or combined with race matchups, and you're placing a small wager to win whatever the X payout is there. So you're parlaying, essentially you're building a ticket to have multiple picks and one ticket, instead of just doing 1v1 and having to wager a ton of money on it. So
this is our core. So if you guys want to get a little wild and add a few extra picks to it to increase your payout, go for it. I highly recommend jumping in, getting in over there, and having some fun. Back to Caesars. So there's a bunch of different stuff, top 5s, top 10s. Do you want to look at some manufacturers, Brian?
We got to check out qualifying odds.
Ooh, I like that. Ford's not the favorite. That's interesting. I usually towards the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Driver to win pole. All right. So Gilliland is the favorite, 6-1. Which is interesting. Given his track record, it kind of makes sense. Kyle Larson being 6-1 is also weird. Zane Smith, Noah what's going on here?
It's the FRM guys. I told you they're pricing this that FRM is going to show up with all the rocket shits. But the one thing I would caution people about, they added a third car.
Yeah.
This is a new year.
And it was McDowell and Gilliland, so I mean, it's not that crazy, I guess.
But I mean, you're not betting Zane Smith at plus 650 to do anything.
No,
I don't even think Zane Smith, the top 10 at plus 650 is a worthwhile wager here. So you're not picking him to win the pole for the Daytona 500.
So who are you picking? Where is the value?
Honestly, I'm kind of disgusted with all of these odds as they got reposted. So interestingly enough, I think I personally played Logano at 10-1 offshore last week at some time before they kind of took everything down and then reposted it at adjusted numbers. And, it's probably going to be my only pole bet. But the other guy that I'm really intrigued about placing is William Byron. 18-1. You're driving an HMS car, which if you go back just a year ago, or, past last year, prior to last year, HMS dominated qualifying here at Daytona.
Mostly Kyle Larson, but yeah.
Kyle Larson and Alex Bowman were like the two guys who did that. However, if you go over to our friends Win the Race, they point out like William Byron was I believe it was a top 8 qualifier at super speedways in 2024. And so he had speed last year when they weren't necessarily the fastest at qualifying on these track types. And so now you're going to give me, again, going back to the market entry, double, even triple the price of his teammate Kyle Larson. Yes, please.
Yeah, no, I think that's a phenomenal point and a phenomenal shout. And 18-1 is really fun. Like that kind of range is really interesting. Busch, Bell, Blaney.
The only thing, so like, I feel like they're goading people into trying to play these guys at these extended numbers. Like Ryan Blaney, 18-1 to qualify in a super speedway. He's incredible at super speedways, but he doesn't necessarily qualify well. Like, you know, he's never a guy that I've seen at super speedway, especially Daytona, who's competing for the pole.
You know what I'm doing? It's probably stupid. Pole bet Chase Briscoe, 30
Oh my
to 1.
gosh.
Started on the pole in 2023 at the summer race, at the 500 in 2023.
Don't forget that was in a Ford.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And maybe I'll look like a doofus. But he was 7th. He's been 6th here. He's been if he gets into that top 10, I think he's got a shot. And like I said, I'm trying to get some value now while I perceive it to be there. It's probably not actually there, but and then you bet him to win the pole. And if he pulls it, then his race day odds are probably 25. And so you're not only, and then you're locking in your victory too. So if you're betting a longer shot and you think they can actually get on the pole, then I do it. But yeah, I don't know. But sure, it's kind of interesting.
There is a guy really down the way down the
Ford?
board that is very gross and is definitely not hitting, but
Is it Julio Castroneves?
keep going. All right, stop.
Corey LaJoy?
So the guy who's single man team now, they disbanded last year. Cole Custer in the Haas factory team at 80-1. I mean, if Ford returns with the same type of qualifying speed that they had last year, I don't think it's too far-fetched to think that the Haas factory team, who has now had, 3 months essentially to prepare for this after they had basically jettisoned everybody on their team even prior to the last month of 2024.
Yeah.
To prepare this car to be as fast as possible. And Cole Custer's not a terrible driver, so clearly, he's been in the Cup Series before. And yeah, the assumption is they're going to be a bottom feeder team, but maybe them retracting the 3 other cars is actually going to help them in the long run in terms of average finishing position and just their overall performance on a week-to-week basis. And so if I'm going to get 80-1 on a one car team driving the body style that was the fastest in qualifying at these track types in 2024, that's something that I think is a very fun dart throw that probably goes out in flames immediately. But, for $1, again, we're talking about an 80x payout here.
Yeah, I'm not doing it because I've seen what Haas can do in F1, but if you want to put a couple bucks on it and see what happens, I've done less with more, or more with less. I don't know how you want to say it, but I've done more stupid things with my money, so I don't hate it. I'm not gonna do it, but Priest is 65. I think I'd rather do.
The only thing is Buescher and Keselowski, we saw it last year. RFK, they come to the track with race trim. I don't recall them ever coming out and saying yeah, we just want to get to the front immediately and start on the front. They have their cars set up a specific way, and I feel like they're going to try to, push that onto Ryan Preece's car as well.
Yeah, I think if you're taking shots, I think the way you described it with Byron, where you take a a Hendrick car not at super short odds. You take a Ford in a good garage not at super short odds, and you hope you come home. Because we've gotten McDowell and stuff at like 20, and I think that's kind of the range you should be looking like
Yeah, I'm
12
not betting
to
anybody
25.
Daytona 6. Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at a few like position props maybe, or do you want to look at top tens?
Yeah, we can look at top 10s. I don't think there's going to be a single one that's
That's
worthwhile,
worth
but
taking a shot on. Let's see. Because we'd obviously don't want to. I'm not
yeah, I
laying
have zero.
minus two.
Anything that's like under 2 to 1 is
Yeah.
like a no.
Yeah, and all these numbers suck.
Yeah, they're terrible.
So I'm not betting any of that. SVG.
I mean, for shits and giggles, I don't mind BJ McLeod 12, but even that number is too short. In all honesty, like
Yeah, that's bad. That's so bad. All right, let's look at a couple. The other thing that I don't mind matchups.
yes,
I would just be. Don't lay heavy juice. It doesn't matter how lopsided you think it is.
yeah.
Because if that guy crashes and the other guy wins, then you're gonna feel real dumb. So I like to find like heavy juice, like more than 2 to 1, 3 to 1, and just taking my shots. But at least at this point, we're probably not gonna get anything really good. Like Briscoe versus Chastain, I think is fine. Obviously, I love Chase Briscoe, but Stenhouse versus Bowman plus money, I don't hate that. Anything jumping out to you? Keselowski versus Plane, like none of these
Honestly,
numbers.
the only one would be Stenhouse at plus money, but
Yeah,
I'm not playing that either.
no.
Yeah, because I'm definitely not laying minus 120, let
No.
alone minus 110. Like for me now, it's got to be even or longer.
Yeah. Top Chevy. Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Ricky Stenhouse.
I don't mind Dylan at
Yeah, I
16.
was
I
looking
think
at
for
that.
like a
Dylan at
long shot, but
16, Bowman at 16. I don't hate.
the one thing I will say about that is the Chevy garage is so loaded. It's much more difficult to find a winner there. I feel like trying to cherry pick from the Fords or the Toyotas is easier. Because I mean, like when you look at the Ford camp, it's it's very narrow of the guys that you would expect to be running up front.
Yeah, I just feel like if you're picking a Ford to win the best Ford, you just bet him to win the race.
I think it's dependent on who it is. So like Cindric, for instance, 7 to 1. I'd much rather play 28.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's interesting. Bubba at 650 to be top Toyota, I don't hate. Briscoe 8 to 1 to be top Toyota, I don't hate.
Riley Herbst 14.
I'm just betting him to win the race at like 3 billion to 1.
Hey man, Riley was great the couple times he got to run at super speedways.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Bubba and Briscoe are interesting here. Those are the only ones that really jump out to me. Maybe a Gregson at 22 if you want to get real wild, but like I said, it's hard to get into the Ford garage. And I don't love
And
anything in Chevy.
I would openly apologize to people. Like there are not going to be a lot of bets flying this week because
No. The only thing that's sort of interesting is the plus 160 on Ford, but like I don't know.
yeah,
That's kind of fun. Like a Cindric win, Blaney top 5, Logano top 10. I know it's a lot
at Daytona, I would almost rather have a market that said wrecks a team wreck. So essentially, it would be all of Penske wrecks out of the race. You'd probably get like 100 to 1. I would rather play that than try to parlay them with a win, a top 5, and a top 10.
A Byron win, a Larson top 5, and an Elliott top 10 at 80 to 1 seems kind of fun.
Man,
But yeah,
you
no, I'm
think
not.
Kyle Larson's
Here we
going to
go.
finish top 5?
Riley Herbst to win, Tyler Reddick top 5, Bubba top 10, 150. You know,
That's not long enough.
I know.
That
I
would
should be an
have to
extra
be
zero in
infinite
there.
to 1.
Can't you get like Riley Herbst to win the race at like that 150?
Yeah, he's so long, and especially too. Like remember something we also haven't mentioned. Make sure you are shopping numbers. Something else that is incredible about Win the Race is that people point out the odds differentials at certain books, which is why it's important to join a community who's always on the lookout for bets.
Yep, because that one time you get a 66-1 on a guy who should be 30 and
Yeah.
basically pays for the whole season.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Herbst is 66 at Caesars, and he's 150 to get all of his team in the top 10. Like, that's just
Yeah, that's not.
nonsensical. All right, Brian, it's good to be back. It's good to be in the flow. We will be back Saturday night to talk DraftKings in your feed Sunday morning. We'll have a newsletter out Sunday morning. We will be in the chat for Chris Wormy's pre-race poll, which is a must in your Sunday morning rotation. So you start your Sundays with us. You go watch Chris Wormy's pre-race poll about 2 hours before flag drop. You watch the race, and then you come back and join us again on Wednesday. We recap the week that was. We go into the week that it's going to be. We give you bets. We give you our full card, so we give you transparency. If we crushed it, if we did horribly, we review all of our DraftKings lineups, what went right, what went wrong, look at ownership, all that good stuff.
And make sure you're subscribing to us on Twitter with both. You see both of our handles here, Kyle's at Notorious KRO and mine
Yep.
at Brian_Twining, because a lot of times we'll tweet out plays that were not part of the show.
Yep.
I actually have a play that I tweeted out multiple days ago, already on the card, so you could go back and you could try to find it on there, and you'll see what I mean. But
yep, and follow the show at FPAOP, or no, it's AOP. Yeah, FPAOP on Twitter, AOP Podcast on Instagram. If you're in either of those locations, make sure you are checking that out. Subscribe to Win the Race. Join us over on Good Rivals. All the stuff will be linked in the description. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. It's race week. NASCAR's back. Let's effing go.